Okay, so our presenter today is Linda Wesley. Linda has been an English teacher and teacher educator for more than 30 years, working in the area of foreign language education and also in K through 12 adult education, junior college, and university levels. She is now the owner and operator of Linda Teaches English, a private business which provides individual and small group instruction to students around the world. Additionally, she facilitates teacher training courses for English teachers as a second or foreign language. In recent years, she has also delivered on-site and/or virtual teacher training and consulting in Bolivia, Dominican Republic, El Salvador, Peru, Saudi Arabia, South Korea, and now Costa Rica. And she holds an advanced degree in teaching English as a second language from Western Kentucky University in the United States. So here to speak with us today with the session Games and Warm-Up Activities for Formative Assessment, please welcome Linda Wesley with a warm virtual applause. So show your hands, give a thumbs up so she can see you.
Hey, everybody. All right. Well, can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay. And now the second thing that we're so used to hearing teachers say, I'm going to share my screen. One moment. All right. Mark, can you give me an affirmative that everyone can see my screen?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay, wonderful. Well, like he said, that was a list of places that I've worked in virtually or on site. And we were just discussing before this that I'm hoping to add Costa Rica to that list very soon. It's been on my bucket list, I think, ever since high school, of some place that I definitely want to visit. So today's session is called Games and Warm-Up Activities, an underused opportunity for formative assessment. And we'll just go ahead and get started. Here's what you need for today's session. One, a piece of paper. It can be just a small piece of paper. That would work out great. Or it can be the corner of your notebook, just anything that you have. Why isn't that working? A pen or a pencil or a crayon or a marker, whatever you can write with. A comfortable chair. We're spending a lot of time online these days, so I found that a comfortable chair is super important. Or, as I see with my students, it could be a chair, a sofa, a bed, just wherever you're comfortable. Your favorite drink, mine for this afternoon, is peppermint tea, and a smile. Just like in class, you know, when we look online, it's wonderful to see people's smiles. So I hope that you'll be smiling during this session today. Just a very brief introduction about myself, in addition to what Mark said. My name is Linda Wesley. You can just call me Linda. And I am from the United States. And more specifically, I'm from the state of Tennessee. And a lot of people aren't sure about Tennessee, but then I mentioned Nashville. Nashville is the home of country music. You can see this guitar and these cowboy boots. So when you think about people like Johnny Cash or Dolly Parton, or today, even people like Taylor Swift, we are the home of country music, Nashville, Tennessee. And I live about 1 hour north of Nashville. And then if people aren't familiar with country music, I usually mention a second thing, which is Jack Daniel's whiskey. And so Jack Daniel's, as you'll notice right here, is called the Tennessee whiskey, and they make that about 2 hours from here. So those are two ways that you might be able to connect with Tennessee if you weren't already familiar with it. And I was going to do your introductions with write the following in the chat, but I see that we did most of that because many of you added your name and the number of years you've been teaching. You didn't have that, but if you'd like to add that in the chat, that would be great. And where you're from. So, for example, I would say that my name is Linda, and I have spent 33 years teaching, which shocks me. And I'm from Tennessee in the United States. So if you haven't already done that, please take the time to share that in the chat for us. So before we get started into the games and activities, I want to spend a little time talking about formative assessment, because I want to make sure that we're all on the same page, that we all have the same understanding of what formative assessment is. So I'll start with the definition that I often refer to. Formative assessment refers to a wide variety of methods that teachers use to conduct in-process evaluations of student comprehension, learning needs. I'm going to apologize. There's someone out there that likes the engine in his car. It's a neighbor. So I apologize for that sound. And academic progress during a lesson, unit, or course. Formative assessments help teachers identify concepts that students are struggling to understand, skills they are having difficulty acquiring, or learning standards they have not yet achieved, so that adjustments can be made to lessons, instructional techniques, and academic support. So that's the official definition that I refer to from the Glossary of Education Reform. But I also like to take that definition and break it down a little bit. So let's make that a little bit simpler. Formative assessment helps teachers and students identify what students do and do not understand. And what happens from that? Teachers can make changes to their teaching, and students can make changes to their studying. For me, these are the two basic principles of formative assessment. Is it gives us, the teacher, an opportunity to change our teaching along the way, and students an opportunity to change the way they're studying. And for those of us who are more visual, or if we like list, here we can compare formative versus summative, two words that you're probably familiar with. Formative is the more ongoing assessment, things like checklist, progress notes, class discussions, peer evaluations, self-evaluations. And so that's learning through feedback and practice. On the flip side, we have summative assessment, which takes place at the end. And these are the things that we think of as pencil paper test, which are often at the end of the unit or the end of a chapter, the end of a semester. It might be a district test. It might be a national test. Those are those summative assessments that are usually standardized, or they might be reports and projects. And so you can see here the famous bubble sheet that we're familiar with, and that would be an example of summative assessment. So again, learning through feedback and practice versus getting a grade, which many times our students are just worried about the grade. Thank you for the heart, Humberto. All right. And if we keep breaking it down again, I think I'm scaffolding backwards. Formative is what we think of as low stakes. Many times formative assessments are not worth any points, or they're worth a few points. Sometimes I like formative assessments to be worth 5 or 10 points because I still want students motivated to do it, whereas summative is the high stakes testing. So I hope that everybody now has that picture in your mind of what formative assessment is and how we can compare that to summative assessment. But what I want to focus on today is formative assessment. So we're going to start early with our breakout room. And I have 4 questions that I want you to discuss in the breakout room for about 15 minutes. Now you'll notice here that I have 4 buttons. The first one says what, And then the next three say why. And that is something that you will see me continue throughout the session. It's very easy to talk about what. We do a lot of what in class, but what I challenge you to do today and then continuing after this session is to keep asking yourself why. So in your breakout room today, the first question you'll ask is a what question, and that is, what are your favorite games and warm-up activities that you use in your classroom? I know that all of you have games and warm-up activities, all right? And just, I'm sure some of them are just so fabulous. So I hope that you'll share those with one another for the traditional classroom, brick and mortar, or the online classroom. But what I challenge you to do today is think about three more questions. Do you mindfully use them as formative assessments? When I say mindfully, I mean, are you consciously thinking about what I'm going to learn as the teacher from this formative assessment, from this game or warm-up activity? And next, do you use this information in your teaching? When you get information from that game or warm-up activity, does it affect your teaching? And the last question, but for me, super important, is do you share this information with your students? If so, how? Okay, so I know Mark is going to divide you into those breakout rooms, and just be honest. I'll be honest, I'll start on this. I want to ask myself all these questions every time I use a game or warm-up activity, but I'm not sure that I always do. I think I do now more than I used to. But in the beginning of my teaching, I just really used games and warm-up activities to motivate students to have some fun, but I didn't really have them inform my teaching. So don't be afraid to be honest about that. Okay, Mark.
Sure. So if everyone looks in the chat, I've just shared a link, and what that link is, it's just a screenshot of these same 4 questions, so you don't have to remember them. So if everyone could click that, and that way you have access to the questions as you go to your breakout rooms. We also asked you to please, turn on your microphones, turn on your cameras if you can while you're in the breakout room, so you can get to interact with your peers. We know sometimes it's hard to break the ice, and then everyone's sitting there in silence, like wanting to say something, but not wanting to be the first one. There's no pressure. Let's do it. Let's just take advantage of these, 15 minutes that we have, and then we'll come back here for the rest of the session. So I'm opening the breakout rooms in 3. Wait, hold on. Let me make sure the options are right. Yes, they are right. Okay, 3, 2, 1.
All right, great. I was telling them I noticed during the breakout room that I had a big piece of lipstick on my teeth. So I have corrected that. If any of you noticed the lipstick on my teeth, one of a woman's most embarrassing things. So we've taken care of that if anybody was bothered. Okay, I am going to share my screen again. Let me. One moment, please. I'm trying to do 2 things. And there's that car again. That car makes me so happy because it always likes to show up right about now during something important. Okay, there we go. Okay. Can you see my screen again?
Yes.
Okay, great. So these were the 4 questions, and I was listening a little bit to a conversation in the main area. And what I heard is we all have a lot of great activities, and definitely they help us review the students on the information. But sometimes maybe we don't mindfully think about it, or we don't mindfully think how to share. So what I want to do today is go through 5 games or warm-up activities that I use, and you can use so many variations of these, and I'm sure that you have some even better ones. But what I want you to do is keep thinking about, how can I use this mindfully, and how can it inform my teaching, and how can I share it with my students? So let's get started here. One of my favorite ones is to use lineups and gather-togethers. So for example, oops, what's happening here? For example, this is a what? Line up in alphabetical order by your first name. All right. Could you all share in the chat just what your ideas are for how that might inform your teaching? And Mark, I'm going to depend on you to maybe read me a few of the chat comments. Yeah. If you ask students to line up in alphabetical order by their first name, what kind of formative assessment can you do?
Sheila says, understanding vocabulary for asking people their names.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anne says classification. Katia says spelling, or alphabet rather. Marianela says spelling. Carla says if they know the alphabet, that's coming through a lot.
That's exactly right. This is one of my favorite things with lower level students when we're learning the alphabet, because so many students think, I know the alphabet, I know it in order. But I promise you, when they get to that area in the middle of LMNOP, it gets a little gray right in there, because even in little children are like LMNOP. It's one kind of like one word. So yes, that can happen. And especially when two people have a first name that starts with the same first letter, then they have to go to the second letter. So there's a lot of negotiating there as to how to do that. All right. Another favorite what is line up in order of your birthdays. So same thing in the chat. What are some things that you can check if you ask people to line up in order of their birthdays?
Okay, people are saying age, months of the year, numbers, dates, ordinal numbers, numbers, prepositions.
Yes. And again, so many students think, I know the months because they can read January, February, March, April. But then when they don't have a list to look at and read, and again, we're negotiating, wait a minute, I'm April 5th and you're May 9th. Is it April, May, or May, April? There's a lot of negotiating there. And you can give that feedback of, you guys did great with this activity. You know, I think that we need to review a little bit more the March, April, May, because a few people were a little bit confused about, is it March or May, because they're both M. Same thing with numbers. Now, I have to tell you, one variation I love of this game is to tell the students that they cannot talk. They cannot talk at all. And so they have to do everything with gestures, and it's absolutely hilarious, especially when they're born in the same month, and then they're trying to negotiate which date is first. Another what? Gather together by your favorite sport. We're going to practice this one in just a moment. Or gather together with people who have the same eye color as you. You know, that's a warm-up activity, but when we ask the follow-up questions, we can find out about the colors. So let's take this third one, gather together by your favorite sport, and do an example of that. So one of my favorite activities in the traditional classroom is to do four corners. I'm sure many of you are familiar with that. With four corners, you can put a sign in four corners of your classroom. And so, for example, with favorite sport, I don't put the word, I just put the picture that represents the sport. And then I ask the students, okay, what is your favorite sport? go to that corner. And again, that gives our students an opportunity to stand up and move around. It doesn't matter if they are 5 years old or 55 years old like me, we all need an opportunity to get up and move around. And so in a traditional classroom, it might look something like this. Maybe 3 people go to the baseball corner. Let's see, 8 people in the soccer, or I know you say football corner, 4 people in the tennis corner, and 2 people in the boxing corner. This is also an opportunity to build community because students are looking at each other and saying, hey, I didn't know you liked boxing. Do you box? And it's a great way for them to get to know each other. But as English teachers, we can take that information and use it for follow-up questions for, again, that formative assessment. For example, Susanna, what is your favorite sport? So I'm asking Susanna, and maybe she's in the tennis corner, but we realize she doesn't know how to say tennis, or maybe she's using the Spanish pronunciation. Ernesto, what is Susanna's favorite sport? First, we have a question that is personal. Then we have a question for asking about somebody else. Marta, how many people say baseball is their favorite sport? I can check numbers. Arturo, what is the most popular sport in our class? Again, I can maybe check numbers, but I can check the names of those sports. Berta, which sport is more popular in our class? Baseball or tennis? And you notice that the questions get a little bit more difficult. But these 5 questions are still very basic answers. But if we want to go to those higher order thinking skills, the hots instead of the lots, you could say something like, Gonzalo, why do you think Susanna's favorite sport is tennis? All right, we've taken the same activity and taking it to a much better, a much higher language level. So when you're trying to differentiate in the same classroom, if you know you have a lower student, you could use one of these questions. If you want to challenge a higher student, you could go into one of these. Carlos.
Linda, I'm sorry
yeah.
to interrupt. I just want to make sure you're sharing the right slide. Are you still sharing the slide that says lineups and gather togethers?
No, it's supposed to be favorite sport.
Okay.
Is it off?
No, we're still seeing the lineups and gather together, so you may be sharing the wrong window.
My apologies.
No problem. We were definitely following along quite clearly.
Yeah.
So I just wanted to make sure that we got the right visuals up there.
Let's try this again. Wow. Linda is not having the best tech day, which is embarrassing when you're kind of a tech person. Okay, can you see that now?
Yes, we got it now.
Okay, wonderful.
Right. I thought she's coming up with all these names and examples right off the top of her head. Okay, we can see it now.
Okay. And so we have all those questions again that we can ask at different levels. And number 8, Fernanda, which of these sports is the most dangerous? Why? So again, these are questions you could ask for different levels, or you could differentiate in the same classroom. Now, I also want to take the opportunity to look at an online alternative. Is everybody in Costa Rica still teaching online? For the most part, yes, I see a few people nodding. All right, so some of you may be familiar with Google Jamboard. I'm going to use that several times today. So I'm going to switch to that. And actually, since I just changed the way I'm sharing my screen, I'll go back to desktop. All right. So can you all see my Jamboard screen? Can everybody see the screen with 4 corners and Jamboard at the top, Mark?
Yes, sorry.
Okay, great.
I couldn't unmute myself. I was trying to.
Okay.
Yes.
All
Yes.
right. And so I asked Mark to share the link with a few people today because I wanted to give you the opportunity to try an online alternative to this. Okay. And so if you're familiar with Jamboard, the fourth icon on the left right here is a sticky note. And so he's sharing this with a few folks. I would like you to grab a sticky note. All you have to do is click once on the sticky, type your name. You can choose your color. It's up to you. And then I want you to add it to the box or the corner where it's your favorite sport. All right, so I'll give a few seconds to see if that's going to work for us today.
So I'm sharing the link here with a couple of people. So just pay attention to the chat. If you see something, a message come to you, that means I am sending you this. We're only sending it to a few people because we don't want it to become overwhelmed with a lot of people, but we may end up trying that. Okay, so Mario Mairena, for example, I'm sending you the link. Jeanette Salas, Zamora,
Oh,
David
awesome. Here we
Salas,
go.
Aida.
David, Yineth,
Okay, I'll just,
fabulous.
okay. Ana Agüero, here's the link for you. I don't think we'll ruin if we just share the link, huh?
No, I don't think so.
Okay,
Let's
everybody.
go crazy. It's
Yeah.
Friday afternoon. Let's go crazy.
I do think we have an upper limit on how many people can be
Okay.
Jamboard, but we'll see when we get there.
It'll stop it. Yeah. But I hope that everybody can see that right now the Jamboard is populating, which is always exciting for students to see the Jamboard populate. Here we go. And so even though this is an activity designed for the traditional classroom, here we've got the opportunity to make it an online activity using Jamboard. Oh my goodness, I think this is my biggest Jamboard ever. Okay, this is fabulous. So, okay, I'm just gonna pop out with a few questions. Yineth, what is your favorite sport? We've lost control of the Jamboard. So I could say, Yineth, what is your favorite sport? Normita, how many people love boxing? Lou, what is your favorite sport? And again, with a typical classroom, you would probably only have about 20 students. And so you wouldn't lose control of the Jamboard. But I'm really happy about this because this is giving you the opportunity to try out Jamboard if you haven't already. This is a free whiteboard that comes with the Google Suite. And so again, Hector says, my favorite sport is soccer. Right there, Hector turned it into a writing assignment, which is fabulous. There are so many variations you can do with this. So I'm going to close that. You can keep adding to it if you want to. I don't even remember which sports those were now. And I'm back to my PowerPoint. So Mark, if there's any time that you're not seeing what I hope you're seeing, please let me know.
Okay, no problem.
But right now, I hope you see a big yellow ball that says why.
Correct.
And so here's this activity. And what I want you to say is, what kind of formative assessment can you do with this activity? With the activity that we just did, whether it's online or in the traditional classroom, what kind of formative information could you get? Number two, how can you use this information to inform your teaching? And number three, again, how can you share this information with your students? So many times we don't give feedback to our students until the summative assessment. And it's actually too late then. All right. So if you want to add some of those comments in the chat, that would be great. But I'm also going to make sure that we move along so that we have enough time. Most of these questions are just ones that I want you to think about. All right. Another one is I call it yes, no, oh no. All right. And I'll give you the in-class option and the online option. This one is very simple. You give each student 2 pieces of candy. Right there, your students are happy. It could be 2 pieces of candy. It could be 2 homework passes. It could be anything like that. Then they are going to walk around the room and ask your classmates questions. If your classmates respond yes or no, they must give you 1 piece of their candy. All right, so the goal is to obviously get as much candy or as many homework passes as possible. What you can see, I did this, the last time I did this in person was in El Salvador with a group of teachers like you all. And it was absolutely wonderful because you had so much activity, so many people talking, and you had really sneaky people who found ways to surprise people with yes, no questions. All right. And so here again, you could use this online with Google Jamboard. Let me switch over there. Can you see my Jamboard?
Yes.
Okay, great. And so you'll notice that these can move around. Now, Mark, could you share that with 3 or 4 people who have their microphone?
Sure. So let me just look here for a couple of people that I know have their mics on. Or if you would like to, why don't you write your name in the chat and the first 4 people that respond.
Let's make it the first 3. I'll be
First
one
3.
of the people.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
First 3. Okay, I already see. Okay, stop. Okay, so Maria Cristina Umaña, I'm going to send you the link and I'll let you open your mic here in just a second. Norma, here's the link and we'll open your mic again in just a moment. The logistics on this with such a big group. All right, one more and that's Lee. Okay, here comes the link for you. And let's get all of your mics open here, guys. So
now this is my first time to try this one online, so we'll see how well it works. But again, it's rapid fire questions. How many questions can you ask? And can you get somebody to say yes or no? Now, it's not just yes. It could be yes or yep or no or nope. You want to try to avoid that. So Maria Cristina, Norma, and Lee, thank you for changing your spelling. I wasn't sure which way. My middle name is Lee, and I thought it might be Leigh. All right. So I hear Lee, I think.
Yes, it's me.
Oh, Lee, give me a piece of your candy.
Oh.
And so Lee can grab a piece of candy and put it over here. All right, Maria Cristina.
Hello.
Hello, how are you today?
Great, I'm here, just glad.
Great, great. Can you hear me okay?
Perfect.
Ah, dang. She's good. I tried to slip in a yes, no question and she answered perfect. Norma, can you hear me?
Perfectly well.
Oh, see, she's really good. Okay, you guys start asking questions.
Linda, are you American?
I am American. Really fast with the questions, everybody. Super fast. Any kind of question.
Norma, do you live in Costa Rica?
In Mexico, actually.
Oh, in Mexico City?
San Cristobal de las Casas.
Ah, where is that? In the northern part?
In the south.
She's so good. Isn't she good, Lee?
I'd say so.
Yeah, you'd say so. And so again, we won't spend too much time on this, but
said, yeah.
Did
You
she?
said yeah.
I said, yeah. Oh, who got me? Was that Lee? She wants her piece of candy back. See?
Thank you.
Mark, you're good. I didn't even notice. I have to tell you, when I did this at a teacher training in Costa Rica, I think we did it for 8 minutes. One teacher had a bag of candy. He was the master of this because he found little ways to do that. And so again, it's wonderful in the traditional classroom, and people are always like, oh man, you did it, you got me, and things like that. But I wanted to think of a variation for this classroom. This might be something that you do in breakout rooms. And then maybe you do it in breakout rooms and there's no recording. You just trust the students, or you could ask them to record the session. All right. And to use that virtual candy like that. All right. Oh, wow. Look at there. Okay, and so I'm going to come back to our PowerPoint. And again, maybe we can do some shout outs. What kind of formative assessment can you do with this activity? You can put it in the chat, or if your microphone is on.
So got a couple of people saying question structure, tag questions, question making, vocabulary, sentence structure.
All of the above. All of the above. You're absolutely right. And the teacher can walk around, monitor, and at the end has so much information to give some mini lessons. Again, you're giving that positive feedback of you all did great with those questions. Now, I did hear a few people invert the word order or forget the auxiliary verb or something like that. But you do it in the big mini lesson category so no student feels picked on. How can you use this information? Again, it can make that the information for mini lessons. It maybe, since we're teaching online, you could make a little, what is it called? Flipped classroom video. I see you guys had a little bit of trouble with this. Let's do a little bit more review. And how can you share this information with students? So many different ways. All right. And right there, you can also think about, how can I make a variation of this? What kind of variations can I use? All right. The next one, find your match. So in a typical classroom, I know that we've all done this before. You might have sentences with a blank, and then the fill in the blank maybe is colors. And you give one card to each student. Maybe some students have a color card and other students have a sentence card. And you ask the students to move around the room to find their match. Okay. I did that 33 years ago when I started teaching. And so you might have something like this where, let's say that we studied colors, and in the past we studied weather, and this week we also studied fruits and vegetables, different kinds of food. So this would be a really great way to review the old vocabulary and mix in those colors. And you could ask students to connect these together. But again, let's think about those online options. I've switched to my Google Jamboard. Can you share that with 2 people, Mark?
Yeah. So what if people just put in the chat that you want to do it, and again, the first couple of people that respond, I will send the link to you. It moves so fast. Okay, well, it might not be the very first, but all right.
I feel bad for Mark, but it's exciting for me that many people want to participate.
All right, so Katia, Marlene, and Maria Jose.
Okay.
I'm not sure of your last name, Maria Jose, sorry.
Anonymous Otter. All right, it looks like we have enough folks. So before you start, I'm going to ask you to turn on your microphones, because another important thing I want to share with you that I heard just a few years ago is unfortunately so many things that our students do. Let's wait just a second on moving the colors. Can we wait just a second? Okay, that's okay. We'll work around that. So, but what I was going to say is we need to take as many opportunities as possible to ask our students to make the learning visible, because so much learning is invisible. All right. We can't see what's happening. So again, we might ask 2 students to do this in a breakout room and record it, or 4 students. And so if I ask them to make their learning visible, I might model it like, okay, strawberries and cherries are, I'm going to choose the color red because I know that strawberries and cherries are both red. Again, they're making that learning visible. They're showing you what they're saying. And so if I want to see if a student maybe is having trouble reading, maybe a student says, the clouds are gray today, it might rain, but maybe they say gray, but they add the color green. If they make their learning visible by discussing it as they go, I can see what kind of problems they're having. So again, if somebody says, the clouds are gray today, it might rain, and they say, because before it rains, the clouds aren't white, the clouds are gray. But then if they put this word here, green, I can understand as the teacher, okay, they saw those first 2 letters, GR, but they didn't look at the rest of the word. All right. So there's so many different things we can do. So there again, these things are all movable on the Google Jamboard. You can use them again and again. And also, if you're not familiar with Google Jamboard, you can take these activities, you can duplicate this page after page after page, and then you can send the link to 2 students for page 1, the link to 2 students for page 2, for page 3, and then they can only edit that page. So thank you for moving those around and demonstrating that for us. And again, all right, if we come back here, the questions you're asking yourself, what kinds of formative assessment can you do with this activity? And again, probably in the chat now, you're saying, I can check colors, I can check reading, I can check their fruit and vegetable vocabulary, I can check their weather vocabulary. If I ask them to record, I can check their pronunciation, so many things. But again, in your mind, thinking, how can you use this information in your teaching? How can you share this information with your students? Again, the games and activities, find your match. That's an example of a what. That's the activity. But what I want you to focus on is the why. Why am I doing this? What can I learn? And what can I share with the students about it? All right. And one more activity, because I want to give us plenty of time to ask questions. The last one is draw it. And again, this is an activity that you can use in a high resource environment or a low resource environment. At the beginning, I asked you to get a small piece of paper and a pen or a pencil. So I'll just give you a second to get that. And let's say in my class, we have been studying shapes, weather. We just mentioned weather, and prepositions. We just learned weather, but I want to keep reviewing prepositions with my students. So here's an activity you can do in class or online. Draw the items as you hear and or read them described. Again, you can decide, what is my goal with this activity? Is my goal listening or is my goal reading? After you get done, share your picture. All right. And so we'll do this on your piece of paper, and then we'll do a big Zoom screenshot and see all of your pictures at one time, if you can turn your cameras on for just a moment. If you want an easy way to display these in class, if you have access to sticky notes, these are great because when everybody's done, they can put their sticky notes on the wall. If they want to add their name, that's great. If they feel a little uncomfortable, that's fine too, because with formative assessment, I like to give general feedback. Okay, so here we go. I'll make this a combination of listening and reading today. Number one, draw a large square on your paper. Number two, inside the square, draw a sun. Number three, oh, we have an artist. Number three, under the square, draw a cloud. Number four, to the left of the square, draw a raindrop. Number five, above the square, draw a snowflake. And number six, to the right of the square, draw a moon. And actually, I'm glad to see the online drawing, because again, you can take advantage of the online environment. You could send a Google Jamboard page to each student, and they could each do their own Google Jamboard drawing of this. There are so many different ways you can do a variation. So I gave this test to my husband, and this was his picture. So I'd like you to compare your picture to his picture and see how you did. All right. And again, we're not asking anybody to be artistic. All right. These are basic things that you can draw. And very quickly, let's see. How about, can we show? Well, we'll wait to the question and answer, and everybody can show their picture. Let's make sure that we get through these. But you can predict what I'm going to ask next. What kind of formative assessment can you do with this activity? In the chat, can you share some of the formative things?
Prepositions.
Yes.
Vocab, shapes. A lot of prepositions.
Yes.
Listening comprehension, vocabulary, places, imperatives.
Yep. Oh, that's great. Imperatives. I forgot about that. Yeah.
Weather vocabulary.
Mm-hmm. And again, you all can make so many variations of this. You could use fruit vocabulary. You could do anything you wanted to. If you didn't want to use paper, you could use marker boards. You could use whiteboards online for anything like that. All right. So again, I wanted to show you that you can do these in very low resource environments where you don't have access to much technology, or in higher resource environments where you do. So we'll do the conclusion here, and save your pictures, because I'd like to do a big group shot at the end maybe. We've talked about 5 different whats today. The first one, the 4 corners with the favorite sport. We did another what, yes, no, oh no, where you try to ask each other questions and trick each other into saying some variation of yes or no. And I slipped and said, yeah. All right. What? The find your match. It's another what, draw it. Again, these are all great activities and warm-ups. And the fifth one here, all of the great activities and warm-ups that you already do. And if we were all together in one place, I would say, but what's the most important question? Why? 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 Why am I doing this? Why am I using that video clip? How is this going to help me? And how is this going to help my students? So again, none of these were brand new ideas for the what's, but hopefully it's given you an opportunity to think more about the why. Okay. And just very quickly, I'll share my contact information before we do the questions and answers. My name is Linda Wesley. Just call me Linda, please. And I'm with Linda Teaches English. You can reach me by email at lindawesley16@gmail.com. I welcome your emails if you have any questions. On Instagram, I give daily lessons on Instagram at Linda Teaches English. So if you would like to join me there, you can also contact me in direct messages, or if you'd like to share that with your students. On LinkedIn, I'm Linda Wesley. And hopefully coming soon, we'll have some Linda Teaches English on YouTube. I'm not sure. All right, I am ready for some questions and answers.
Okay, everyone. So the way that we typically do this is you can write your questions in the chat, or if you'd like to address Linda directly, you can let us know and we can let you open your microphones. A lot of good feedback so far.
Oh, good.
So, oh my God, this session has been so good from Catherine.
All
right.
Despite the lipstick and the failed technology on my part.
All right. So if anyone has a comment or a question, again, just write it in the chat or let us know, or, wave your hand or write your name in the chat and we can let you use your microphones. All right. Barry, I'm going to go ahead and let you open your mic. And I saw that you wrote something in the chat, but if you wanted to ask her.
Hi, Linda.
Hi.
This is Barry.
Hi, nice to meet you, Barry.
Nice to meet you. I might say first that your workshop was really good with fresh activities and
Thank
ideas
you.
that we can implement. And I would like to ask, I wrote it already on the chat, that what do you take into account to plan your activities, your warm-up activities, the time, the quantity of students, the atmosphere that you want to implement? Thank you.
All of the above, but I'll try to be more specific. I am a huge believer in backward design. I don't know if you all have talked much about backward design, but this is the idea that first you choose what it is I want my students to be able to do, not just what they should know, because again, knowing is invisible. It's really hard to see what students know. So I start with, what do I want my students to be able to do? And then that helps me make my objectives. And then I plan those activities. So back to your question, when I do that, I'm always asking, how will this game or warm-up activity help them reach that goal? And I also think of that when I talk about backward design, I think of that as the destination on your map. So for example, I was telling Lily and Mark before that my father and husband and I are traveling to Michigan next weekend. It's really important that we know the destination, because if we get in the car and we don't know the destination, we're just driving, all right? And so we need to know that destination so that we can decide what are the choices we make that will best get us to that destination? So that destination are those objectives for the students. If I want them to reach that place on the map, on the student map, how will this help them get there? So then, of course, the things you mentioned, I have to consider how much time will this take? Can I make variations for my lower students and my higher students in the same classroom? Is it online or is it in a traditional classroom? If it's in a traditional classroom, do I have the physical space to move around? What can I do to make things run smoothly? So many times we lose our students when we're transitioning into activities. So many times, if I'm in a traditional classroom, as they walk in the door, I give them a piece of the activity, which makes them curious, all right? But that way, first, I get the opportunity to greet each student as they walk in the door and to make eye contact, all right? And to use their name and to compliment their shirt or something. But two, I've also taken that moment to do some classroom management of giving out the materials that they're going to need at the same time. So all of those things, but I'll go back and say, but the number one thing is, how will this activity help them reach the destination of the objective that they need to meet?
And Barry in there said he's sorry he couldn't turn his camera on. So, well, I know Rosa had her hand up for quite a while. So Rosa, if you'd like to open your microphone, you can.
I see a familiar face. Hi, Betty Ann.
Yes, hi.
Yes, Rosa. Rosa.
Well, I would like to ask about how would you integrate special students to these kind of activities, because they have a really low vocabulary. I like the activities, but I have some autistic kids, and I would like to apply them, but I don't know how to do it with them.
Oh, so that's something that we're starting to work with more and more, is having students with disabilities in our language classrooms. And first of all, I will say I am not an expert. I do have some colleagues that are quite proficient in that area. But with autistic students, there might be the possibility of creating some picture cards and asking them to participate using the picture cards instead of the actual vocabulary. You mentioned that students, especially your lower level students, don't have much vocabulary, not the students with autism maybe, but that's the other thing that is super important. And back to Barry's question, I want to make sure that when I design that activity, that I am using vocabulary or grammar structures or whatever that I know students should know because it happened in my classroom. One of the big problems I see is there are so many activities online. There are so many incredible websites that have worksheets that are pre-prepared that you can copy and use in the classroom. But so many times what happens is they use vocabulary or grammar structures that our students don't know. So I encourage you to go online, look at those activities as inspiration, but then take the inspiration to create your own activities with things that you do know. And let's go back to that draw it example. You know, maybe the students don't know all the shapes yet. Don't use the other shapes. Maybe just use square again and again and again until you're ready to add the second shape. If they only know 3 or 4 fruits, limit that because you want your students to feel success. And the other thing is you want students to know when they're successful. That's one of the greatest parts about formative assessment, is you give them the opportunity to know themselves if they're successful. I hope that helps a little bit. I wish I was more of an expert with students with disabilities, but if you want to send me an email, I do have a couple of colleagues who work with that more specifically, and they have a Facebook page, but at the moment I'm forgetting the name of the Facebook page.
All right, so I see that Betty has her hand up, but there were a couple of questions that came in right before then.
Okay.
So I think they're quick. Someone's asking, how long should a warm-up last ideally? And also, should the warm-up be related to what you're going to be teaching in that particular class?
All right, so warm-ups in my definition can be a little bit of both, because another part, and I know Laura Holland talks a lot about this for those of you who have had the opportunity to see Laura's great presentations. We also want to do community building in classes. Even in our online classes, or I shouldn't say even, I should say maybe even more in our online classes, because students need to feel that connection. And so with warm-up activities, sometimes they don't really have to be connected to the language if they are also building community. But ideally, we would put those things together. For me, I usually try to keep those ones at the beginning of class to about 5 to 8 minutes. I do believe that, again, whether the students are 5 years old or 55 years old, we don't have the attention span to stay on one thing very long. All right. We need to be changing those activities a lot. So I tend to go for the 5 to 8 minutes. And then with the activities that we do in class, or the warm-ups, or the stir activities, or not to forget the end of class, I think we need to wrap things up at the end with exit tickets and reviews. In my opinion, you always want to tell the students why we're doing this activity, because they are going to believe more in you if you tell them, this is why. Again, let's go back to our driving thing. This is why we're taking this exit, because I know that if we take this exit, it will get us to our destination more smoothly. The road doesn't have construction, or it's not a bumpy road. And when students can see that you are doing that mindfully, they have a lot more faith in you to follow along. So again, I don't know if there's a perfect answer, but I tend to keep the activities themselves into kind of a 5 to 8 minute block so that we can spend a few more minutes following up on it.
Okay, great. Betty, if you'd like to open your microphone. So she's tapping on her screen.
Very briefly, I'll say I had the wonderful opportunity to work with Betty Ann in El Salvador, which I was mentioning a little bit before. Hi.
I'm back. It's lovely to see you, Linda.
You too.
I have great memories of that symposium. I'm not very tech savvy, but I'm getting better and better as we can't travel to El Salvador. But I had not heard of the Google Jamboard before. Is that free, similar to Kahoot, or yes?
Yes,
all right.
Absolutely free. And for those of you who use Gmail or any of the Google things, in the top right corner, people call it the waffle. What is it, 9 dots in the top right corner? If you click on that, surprise, surprise, there are so many different apps for Google. One of them is Jamboard, completely free. And it has opened up such a world for me personally. Yeah. And it fits for those of you who maybe are teaching in Google Suite with Google Classroom. It fits in beautifully. And I'm sure that, yeah, there you go. So there it is right there. And something I just learned recently, if he wants to click on that, you can drag those icons into a different order, because I was always scrolling down trying to find Jamboard, but you can click and move that. Surprise, surprise.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, and so you can see I have a lot of Jamboards here for my private lessons. I don't even know what all we've been working on recently, but it's wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's so good to see you.
Likewise.
All right, a couple of people with their hand up. So Vicky, if you'd like to open your mic.
All right. Thank you very much, first of all, Linda, because, looking and listening to you, the thing is like going back into the simple things. Go and draw, go and do these simple activities. I felt very happy, like I feel like going to my class and teach right away. So I'm gonna try my new stuff in here. So thank you very much for that.
That is such a wonderful compliment. I appreciate it. It makes me want to go teach.
Yeah, actually I feel that way. So thank you very much for your sharing. This is really great. And I had a question, but you already answered it. And it was in relation to the curricular accommodations. So I understood everything on what you said. So thanks in advance. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And I want to point out to those of you, I asked at the beginning for a smile, and it's, when you teach to a screen, you all know it's so wonderful to see some smiles, because that's something we miss in the traditional classroom, or miss because we're not in the traditional classroom.
Let's see, Jorge, would you like to open your mic? There you are.
Yes. Hi, Linda. How are you doing?
Hi, Jorge.
Nice meeting you. I have a question for you. How do you start dealing those activities with people that they don't have any vocabulary? Like, for example, sometimes here in Costa Rica, that we start using Spanish in our classroom. So how do you start dealing those beautiful activities that you start teaching to us, but with activities that with the students that they have low, like zero English? How do you start dealing with that?
Again, and this is where I specialize, working with the lowest level learners. I depend heavily on visuals. And one of the things that in addition to visuals, which online we're so fortunate to have Google Images and all of those things, but one of the things I think we forget to do is modeling the activity for the students. So often when I'm working with really low level students, let's just go back to the 4 corners activity, okay? I might do that activity 3 days in 1 week. On the first day, I will just do the activity, and I might even, in your case, use Spanish, but I would try not to. Okay, so with the 4 corners, I would put the pictures of the 4 sports in each corner. And I would use gestures to say, which one is your favorite? And I would myself walk to the baseball corner and say, I love baseball. Baseball is great. And then I might walk to the boxing corner. I don't like baseball. And so I would model that. And in the first day, I would basically use that activity with almost no speaking. Maybe I'm speaking, but the students don't need to, because so many times with these activities, the students need to feel comfortable first. They need to feel safe doing the activity. And that's where so many times we forget to model. So the first day, again, I might just ask them to go to those corners and just have the pictures. I wouldn't ask any questions, but I would say, oh, 5 people love baseball. 2 people love boxing. Then the next day, we would do the same activity. Maybe I would move the pictures just for variety. But on the second day, in addition to the picture, I would add the word. All right, because now I want the student to put the word and the picture together. We'll do the same activity. Now students are more comfortable. Maybe the third day I remove the picture and just use the word. So you can see what I'm talking about, that I'm scaffolding it little bit by little bit. But again, I'm making the students feel comfortable in the process of the activity. But this is where, if you're going to do an activity again and again, just a little bit different, keep it short, because you don't want them to get bored, but you do want them to know, yesterday you just did the picture. Today you did the picture and the word. Tomorrow it's just the word, things like that. So that's just one example of how I do that. And don't be afraid to start with a really small quantity. I know that many, 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 many years ago, I taught beginner Spanish. And at the time, the curriculum said, okay, there are 30 weather vocabulary words and phrases that they need to know. And oh my gosh, what did I do? I gave them that list of 30 vocabulary words and phrases and go home and memorize these. Oh, I regret that so much. I should have started with 1 or 2 or 3 words. And then the next day added a few more and a few more, because if you hand somebody a list of all the words at one time, that is the opposite of motivating, that is demotivating. So I hope that answered that a little bit. Thanks for 2 thumbs up. I appreciate that.
Okay. Well, I'm not seeing any other questions. There may have been some that we missed in the chat, but I think what I would like to do, we can stay on for a few more minutes for a few extra questions, but I would like to just quickly share my screen and take advantage of the time to say thank you, Linda, from us here at Centro Cultural, PD Talks, and National Conference for Teachers of English, for your time, your energy, a lot of people complimenting your smile as well. So thank you so much, Linda. So everyone, please, I'm going to turn off the screen here so you can give her a thumbs up or wave your hands there.
Thank you. And can we show some of those draw it
Yeah,
pictures?
let's do that. Let's do that. Let me get I want to take a screenshot as well. So
yeah, will you send me the screenshot?
Yes, no problem.
All right.
Okay, everyone. So let's share our drawings.
And I'm also seeing that a lot of you are in comfortable chairs and some people are outside. I see a few favorite drinks. That's fabulous. And back to what was mentioned before, don't be afraid to keep it simple. You know, some of those activities that a lot of you are very young teachers, but some of us, I don't want to say old teachers. What's a better word? More experienced? Is that better than old? These activities are things we learned a long, long time ago. Don't be afraid to go back to those.